You can really do anything that you want in this life, and you don't have to look at what society tells you need to do. You don't have to take the path that people tell you to take. It really can be up to you.
So a great content creator that's out there called Queenie Tan. Granted, you may have youth on your side, but you go, look, you had a mortgage, bills to pay, and you still took a chance on yourself. If you're saying to someone, hey, you can do this, and I've done it, what other advice do you have?
It's never too late. As long as you're breathing, you're with us, it's really never too late.
How did you do that at 23?
The principles are simple because spending less than I earn, saving my way to my deposit, but definitely wasn't easy. I was contributing with my partner, so we both went 50-50 on the home deposit.
When you are talking to people around limiting beliefs, what's some of your beliefs around that personally?
When I first started investing, I thought that the biggest things that would sabotage my success when it comes to building wealth and investing would be external factors, the banks, the stock market, or the property market crashing, or all these things outside of my control.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Look, we go far and wide to find some awesome guests, and if you spend any time on social media, you'll see there's a great content creator that's out there called Queenie Tan. Queenie, welcome onto the show. How you doing?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
I'm excited to have you. I love the energy, and that energy, what you see online is the same thing that you get in person. So it's incredible. If you live under a rock or you don't have TikTok, and that rhymes, Invest with Queenie is your handle. Let's go through some numbers and some stats. 160,000 followers on Instagram, 70,000 on YouTube, and 225,000 on TikTok. I think you know what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it didn't always start like this. Let's be real. Do not scroll back to my old videos. They're very cringe.
That's all they say. You should be embarrassed of your first bits of content, right?
100%. I feel like everyone is, and it's one of those things you have to be prepared to be cringe so that you can get better.
Totally. And that's where, it's probably built like a bit of a muscle for you where content now probably comes a little bit more naturally to you. But at the start, it's like, cut, do that again. And it's like any type of reps training, it's practice does make perfect, and progress is probably the best part of that journey as well. So I'm very curious to start with this going, you're very young. This is not a traditional career path. How did you get into this?
Yeah, it is really interesting. So I guess it kind of starts back in my childhood. It was really interesting when I look back about why I care so much about finances. It really begins there. And my parents, they divorced when I was really young, and I ended up living with my dad. So he took care of me full time, and my mom will come and visit from time to time. And something that I've noticed was a bit different about my childhood was my dad actually didn't work because he had investments that paid for our lifestyle. And it was interesting because going into school, people would always be like, oh, what do your parents do? What do your parents do? And I wouldn't know what to say because my dad didn't work. And it's not like we had this crazy, flashy lifestyle or anything. It was very modest. We had a very modest home. I went to public schools, didn't live in a fancy area or anything. But I guess I always thought it was weird how I guess I still remember sometimes wishing we had nicer things like the other kids, like oxtail or
Overseas holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Those sorts of things. But I think when I got older, I realized how amazing it is to have financial independence and not have to rely on a job full time. And when I first started working in my first office job, it just hit me then. I was like, I do not want to be doing this forever. I do not want to have to just be paid for my time and just be worried about getting fired tomorrow, or what if something happened and I wasn't able to work. It's a very uncertain place to be, especially as a young person. And that's when I started to realize maybe my dad's sort of methods of being extremely frugal and saving money, investing, maybe those things actually do make sense. So I moved out of home when I was 19. I started investing, and at the time it was just, I guess, a bit of a hobby. And I think how I got into this career is during the pandemic. At that point, I had been investing for 5 years. I bought my first place. I was 23 at the time, and I just saw the news and all the headlines. The coronavirus was, ripping through the world, and all of these young people were losing their jobs. And I saw these huge queues in front of Centrelink, and I just felt so grateful and lucky to be in a position where I was a young person who had moved out of home, who had bought their own place, and even though I wasn't financially independent, I still felt like I had so much more security than I did when I just moved out of home at 19. And I guess I just wanted to start creating content to help those people that maybe were in the position that I was, where they were feeling uncertain. Maybe they were working these jobs and just like, trying to make ends meet. And I wanted to create content to help inspire people to be like, I know if it's a really shit situation now, it's not going to be like that forever. And here's how you can turn it around, basically.
You've got a very mature head on your shoulders, my friend. That's honestly, and that's not. And content, I guess, from you has come from a place of a personal journey. So it's probably where it really shows up that this is natural to you. There's no sales agenda that comes with it, for example. But you're living and breathing it yourself, which becomes really important. I want to go back to a point that you said, hey, look, I'm working this office job. At any given point, I could lose my job. And I tell this to people all the time. Like, there's no guarantees, particularly when they get to really, really, really high incomes, and those jobs become few and far between. If you're working in a role, let's call it sub 80K, you could probably land another role fairly quickly if you've got transferable skills. But as you get more specialist, or as you get more niched in a particular industry, it becomes hard to get a job. How did you figure that out at such a young age?
Oh, I think that it was a bit of a combination of moving around, because I was very ambitious young. Every 2 years I would try to like move jobs if I wasn't getting like pay increases, to try and increase my salary really quickly. And that was how I was able to, I guess, have some financial stability so young, because I was getting regular pay increases. But just in the different like jobs that I had in the workplaces that I had, like especially at the beginning when you don't have much experience, you kind of take what you can get. And I had some experiences working for some bosses that weren't so nice or weren't so pleasant. Like, I still remember this one time, I was working with this lady, and this lady had a few kids, and she was on a trip to the Gold Coast with her kids. And we were all really excited for her, because she'd been looking forward to this trip for a really long time. So she went with her kids, and they were driving there. And then she called our office and she said, we're trying to drive back. We're on the way back in the car, but something happened with the car. I think there was a flat tire or something, and we need to stay the night in a motel. And she was just telling our boss, like, I'm so sorry, I was supposed to be in work tomorrow, but is it okay if I come in the day after, or the day after that? And then he basically said to her, no, if you don't come in tomorrow, then you're fired. And I just remember like hearing that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like it was just not just for like feeling bad for my colleague, but just like that uncomfortable feeling, like, that could be anyone. And it's like not an unreasonable request. Like, you could really tell she wasn't trying to lie, or like she wasn't chucking a sickie or anything. Like, she was completely honest about what had happened, and he was just being completely unreasonable. So I think those sorts of jobs, I was like, oh gosh, like I did not want to be walking on eggshells and, basically trading my time for money, because it can be really difficult, especially when you're in a position where, you might not have a lot of experience, and you kind of have to take what you can get with jobs.
Yeah. Nicely said. Thank you very much. And again, going back to your example with your dad, where you looked at your dad and you didn't have to work. But I think also what you've got a massive amount of benefit is time with your dad, like seeing him, be present, being around. I'm assuming drop-offs or pickups, for example. Your dad's there, and there's probably not a lot of dads that do that back then as well. I'll occasionally do it with my little girls, and I think it's a little bit more mainstream now. But back then, I'm assuming it was quite progressive growing up like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it made me realize, like, yeah, you can really do anything that you want in this life. And you don't have to look at what society tells you need to do. You don't have to take the path that people tell you to take. It really can be up to you if you're willing to kind of make those maybe short-term sacrifices for some long-term benefits, And especially time with your family is so important, and like kids, and, being able to spend your time meaningfully, I think, is so important. And that's why I'm so passionate about personal finances. And I'm sure you are too.
I am. Look, my philosophy, I hear where you're at. So my philosophy is, you can come to this country, and I see this all the time with a lot of migrants, and within one generation, you can change the entire financial trajectory of your bloodline. Like, I don't think there's very many countries in the world that you can make such a rapid acceleration in terms of your wealth position within, not like your kids, within your own lifetime. Literally within about 10, 15 years, if you invest well, you can get the fruits of that labor pretty quickly. And that's why I feel so genuinely passionate about this, going, I don't think you realize what a golden opportunity we have. And when people talk and complain about the property market and not being able to get in, I don't think it's a financial thing. I think it's a mindset thing that really holds them back. And I know you and I are going to talk a lot around mindset and limiting beliefs as well, because it's obviously we sing from the same hymn sheet in that perspective. But I think for me, when I see what this country can give to people and offer to people, like you can get into ETFs with a little bit of money. You can buy some shares. You can complain about the banks making major profits, or you can choose to buy CBA shares. You got two options at that point. CBA shares are, I'm not saying they're going to always go up. They're going to do their thing with or without you. Same as the property market. And I think for people like us, we've got nothing. Sure, we've got a business. Our business will continue with or without people jumping on board. Same as probably your level of content and what you do as well. So there's no commission breath that comes out, and it's going, hey man, do you realize the opportunity that you've got? And if you don't take action, you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Actually, I mean, my daughter now, she's just over a year now. And I look at her and you know how people always say, oh, I wish I invested when I was born, or I wish I invested when I'm a baby. And just looking at her makes me realize, like, oh my gosh, what will be the things that she will be looking back, when she's, say, 30, she'll be looking back 30 years ago and being like, oh, that was such a great opportunity. I wish I did that when I was a baby, like there are totally opportunities all around us,
Well said. So I guess your ability to fall into this, like, how did you start what you're doing now around content creation?
So I started during the pandemic because I was working from home. I had a lot more time, couldn't go out, couldn't socialize, couldn't do much at that point. So I was like, yeah, it might be nice to start this side hustle. I kind of always knew that I wanted to create some sort of like online business, talking to people about money or just getting ahead in personal development, those sorts of things. And it was just really the perfect opportunity for me to start. So I started small, just posting a few videos here and there, and never really thought that I would be able to turn it into my actual job. I guess in the back of my mind, I always thought, oh, it'll be nice maybe in like 4 years' time or 5 years' time, maybe it'll be like a bit of a side hustle still, or like replace some of my income. But I was able to go full time on it after about 2 years, and my partner has also joined me full time. So yeah, it's pretty amazing, like what you can do when you just put your mind to it, and when you find something that you're really passionate about. And now I'm also licensed to give general advice, so I can give general financial advice, talk about different ETFs, stocks, those sorts of things, and different options for people. So yeah, I feel like it's nice. Like it didn't always start. It didn't start so easy, and the content at the beginning is very cringe. And I still remember my first video I posted. No one watched it, for one. And then I think I posted it to my personal Facebook page, and then somebody that I knew in real life commented, and he was just basically like making fun of me. And I was like, oh no, what am I doing? Like, this is so embarrassing. But I think that you have to get over those kind of hurdles in order to build something that you're really proud of. And I think now I realize, like we spoke about limiting beliefs, but I've been doing a lot of, I guess, introspection, work on myself, and trying to progress myself in all areas. And something that I've really, really realized is it's really interesting. There's this term in psychology called the shadow self. And basically it's the part of ourselves that we kind of like to hide away and we don't want to show the world. And the way that you can get an insight into your shadow self is to have a look at the things that kind of annoy you about others. And I'm not talking about like things that are very obvious, like, oh, if someone's a psychopath or someone's a murderer, then I don't like that. It doesn't mean that that's your shadow self. It's more like the weird irritations that you have. Like, for example, for me, if I see someone acting selfishly, like I might think, oh, that person's so selfish. But I realized in my shadow self, I want to be a little bit more selfish sometimes and put myself first. And what I've realized as well is when your biggest critics when you're putting yourself out there on social media or in your job or in your career, the people that try to put you down, it's actually more of a reflection on themselves than it is about you. And it's probably an insight into their shadow self, because they're like, it's not like you're doing anything wrong by putting yourself out there. You're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
So why does it trigger people?
Yeah.
Yeah, why does it trigger people? And I think sometimes it's because some people wish they could do that, but maybe they're not allowing themselves to as well. So now I've realized, like, obviously I do take constructive sorry. Oh, yeah, thank you. Obviously, you know, putting yourself out there does come with constructive criticism, and I'm always open to that. But it's more like those things that are like, oh, when people are just ticked off just for you putting yourself out there, I've noticed might be the shadow self, you know?
And I guess you just get to a point where either you don't read the comments or you just don't care at some point now. He's going, I'm doing me, you do you, boo. And we all get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. There'd be people listening, and only our listener, because I'm really fortunate, a lot of people that are listening will reach out at some point. I get a kick out of that. So if you are listening, you do reach out, just know that I will answer the phone when they make appointments. And I speak to them, like they've got this itch they want to scratch, whether it's a career change, whether it's, hey, look, I really want to, some clients want to move into a buyer's agency role. They want to move into this different part of life. And it's a little bit this like fear of the unknown, not willing to back themselves or take a risk. And here you are, granted, you may have youth on your side, but you go, look, you had a mortgage, you had bills to pay, and you still took a chance on yourself. If you're saying to someone, hey, you can do this and I've done it, what other advice do you have for something in that situation?
I think it's never too late. As long as you're breathing, you're with us, like it's really never too late. And there are so many examples of people that started businesses or changed careers later in life and had huge success. Like Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was in his 70s. Like, isn't that crazy? And I always I think what I've realized is time will just move on, whether you're doing what you enjoy or chasing your dreams or not. Like regardless, time is just going to move on. So you either are going to do those things or you're not. And one of my friends, I've got two friends and they both want to get into real estate. One of my friends, she's in her late 20s, she's 29. She really wants to get into real estate, but she's in such a good role in sales that she's like, oh, I don't want to start from scratch again and move into real estate. And I'm like, that's such a shame, because I also have another friend in her 40s and she's also in a similar position. She's like, I really want to get into real estate, but I don't want to start from scratch again. And I'm just thinking, like, these are two different people. But imagine if they were the same person, like imagine if my friend that started when she was 29 moved into real estate. By the time she's 40, like my other friend who still wants to get into real estate, she would already be well into her career. And I've just realized, like, yeah, it's so important to I know it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it's also hard to go play it forward 11 years. Like that 29 to 40, like you go, I can't see myself at 40. Like that 11-year gap is far too long. It's almost like telling people, go and buy properties and wait for 11 years to go and like bear the fruits of your labor. And like, that's a long time away. Like, I want it now. And I want to move as quickly as possible versus, what do we call it? Delayed gratification. But it's like, you have to play the long game at some point, whether it's career, whether it's investing, and that whichever is your poison, shares, ETFs. I mean, I think it's probably one where crypto catches a lot of people's attention, which is that's quick. Like that can be a very quick asset class. You don't really get that in many other investments where it can move so quickly and make people a lot of money. And I think we see that a little bit, and it's like almost feeds into that further going, yeah, if I slow down to speed up, that's a very slow trajectory to get an 11-year career in sales. But I mean, for us, even in our industry, the top 100 mortgage brokers probably have a tenure of somewhere like 8 to 10 years minimum on average. And that says a lot about playing the long game. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I feel like money, it really does come when you're ready for it. Like sometimes if it comes too quickly and you're not ready for it, you could end up losing it all, like a lot of the pro athletes, as soon as they get, start earning a lot of money, they lose it all.
I mean, 60% of NBA players will end up broke. Yeah. That number on the basketball, that number blows my mind. I'm like, how did they go from earning millions and millions? And then you start to listen to like how quickly it comes in, how quickly it goes out. whether that's scaled, whether you're earning millions or you're earning 100,000, how quickly it comes in versus how quickly it goes out is a rule. It's a real behavior.
Absolutely. So that's why I think it's actually good, that sort of slow, steady pace, although it can be annoying. You're like, why aren't I rich yet? It actually can be good because you're preparing yourself to have wealth. And when you do have wealth, which will come when you put in the steps and you put in the work, you'll know what to do with it when you actually do accumulate that wealth.
Nicely said. Thank you very much. You quickly just glazed over the fact that you bought your first home at 23, and people listening go, bloody hell, how do you do that? How did you do that at 23? Because that's not common. I mean, average first home buy age in Australia is 37.
Yeah, I know. And it definitely wasn't easy. I mean, it's the principles are simple because basically spending less than I earn, saving my way to my deposit.
Yep.
But yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. I was contributing with my partner, so we both went 50-50 on the home deposit. So it was helpful having someone else to save with and someone else to keep us motivated, because I feel like if I was just saving by myself, it might have been a bit more difficult, especially like losing motivation and those sorts of things. But yeah, basically the way that we were able to do it so young was I moved out of home at 19 and moved in with my partner, and at that time had no money. Basically, it was he was doing an internship, I was working 2 jobs and studying at the same time. Like our income and expenses, like everything, our budget was really, really tight, and it was really difficult to, let alone just make ends meet, but we couldn't even save anything left over from our paychecks. So after, I guess, going through the motions, we started to increase our salaries slowly. And I guess what we realized was those habits that we had when we didn't have very much money, we kept those habits even as we started to earn more money. So we stayed in the same apartment that we were living in with the same rent. We didn't upgrade our apartment as we started to earn more money. So we kept our expenses low. We would bring our lunch to work every day at the office. So make it at home, bring our lunch to work, because we realized by going and getting takeaway every day, that could easily be, $15, $20 on lunch out every day. And it really does add up. Things like coffees we would make at home, bring to work. And yeah, I kind of do regret some things looking back, because I do think that I was quite hard on myself. We still did spend on things like travel and holidays because we really enjoy those things. But anything apart from that, clothes, going out with friends for coffee, wouldn't even allow ourselves to do that. Like, I remember going to cafes and I would just sit there and not order anything and just drink water because we were saving so hard. And I kind of do look back on those times, and I wish I would have eased up a little bit, because I don't think it had to go that extreme.
Would it have moved the needle that much if it was? But I guess here's the thing: like, you go, okay, it's 1 cup of coffee, and that's a breakfast, and like that's probably where that creep starts to go in. Okay, you can be frivolous with the 1 cup of coffee. That's not going to change your life, but it did help you. But it's almost like that incremental spend, and just like you allow yourself the permission to go, okay, well, if I give the coffee, then I can have that. Then I can have the banana bread, and it would slowly add up. So I think the discipline is probably the most important part. Had a goal, alignment with the partner is what I'm hearing as well. That becomes huge. Like, that's probably where I see a lot of partners probably have that misalignment. We speak a lot about that in this podcast when you're trying to invest together or buy a home together. That sense of alignment is, you can't build a house with 2 different blueprints is the analogy. So kudos to you guys, mate. Well done. In your community and people that engage with your content, there's got to be people that reach out and go, this is impossible to buy our home. And I'm probably hear that, it came through the election. It was probably one of the, biggest topics around home ownership for younger Australians, and that ship has sailed. Do you believe that ship has sailed for young Australians?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely so much harder, and the stats don't lie. Now the average home buyer is in their late 30s, whereas it used to be in their 20s, which is just crazy. And wages just have not kept up with the price that home prices are just increasing by. So it is a lot more difficult to buy your first home. It's a lot more difficult to save and invest and do all of these things, for sure. It definitely is. I'm not denying it. But I do still think that, there are two ways that you can approach it. You know, one way is you can kind of think that it's impossible and give up and not even try, or you can try to figure out ways that you can still keep moving forward, because whether we like it or not, like, this is the reality that we're living in. And I know both sides of government, they're trying to fix the housing crisis, but we don't know how long that will take. We don't know what kind of impacts it will have on the housing market. And, you know, waiting around for a solution that potentially might not happen is probably not the best way to go about it. I do prefer to kind of take my future in my own hands and try to see what I can do to try and get ahead. So it's difficult, but there are definitely still ways to get ahead. You know, we bought our first home, which was an apartment, and it wasn't a very nice apartment. It was quite old, you know, one of those red brick apartments. It was very old.
Popcorn ceiling?
Yeah, it wasn't nice. But we lived in it for a few years. We renovated as we got more money. Now it's rented out, and we're getting really good income from that rental property because we renovated. And because we bought it so cheap, now it's actually worth more because we got it at such a good price. So there are still opportunities like that, and I'm sure you would advise your clients on maybe even better things, because I'm not a property expert. So
No, look, I don't think you need to be a property expert in the sense that you just go, look, like you've done, discipline followed by a bit of willpower, and then knowing, like, I guess what the way to move forward is. I think people knowing and listening to podcasts like this is great to fill your knowledge cup up with. At some point, the rubber's got to hit the road. Yeah, and that's where I say to you guys, people say, oh, you're lucky. It's like, no, but we actually had to go apply for the loan, find the property, get the contractor sale reviewed, building in pests or strata, for example. There's a whole series of activities that then start to follow that. That knowing and being able to do is one part. Actually taking action is the next biggest part as well. And I feel like you've also nailed it when you said, I'm not waiting for the government to do something. The amount of people at the moment, as we go to air on this episode, Labor hasn't announced what they're doing at HEX, but the amount of first home buyers that are seeing them waiting for the 20% reduction in HEX to come off, I'm like, mate, just wait, we're going to get a rate cut. Potentially another rate cut. This property market's going to surge. That 20% haircut on the HEX may not actually move the needle too much. You might feel like you're getting something back from the government, but with all honesty, the property market surge that if you know you're not net ahead as well. And I think it's a poor strategy when you're waiting for governments to help you or enable you. If you can do it yourself, I will always say do it yourself.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And we really don't know what the impact of all of these like first home buyer initiatives, because they are really great and it is great to give first home buyers a leg up, but we never really know what will happen with the housing market. So I always find, like, even when I was buying my first home, I had no idea it was like the bottom of the market when we bought in 2019. But looking back now, it was actually the best time to buy. But I still remember the headlines were like, oh, the property market's going to fall further.
30-40%.
And then, yeah, just wait until you're ready to buy. And that's the best time to buy.
Well said. Buy what you can, when you can, where you can.
Yeah.
This will take care of itself. Thank you very much. You mentioned, and again, when you talk with your content, you're cutting across different asset classes to invest in. So you've got crypto, ETFs, shares, property, for example. Some people invest in gold, and people are coming to you going, hey, should I diversify? Should I kind of spread my risk or spread it across the different asset classes, or do I go all in? Now, this is, again, case dependent, not financial advice, in the sense that everyone will differ and vary in terms of what their means and their ability is. But because I hear diversification is diversification.
Oh, yeah.
Or hey, is it smart just to spread a bit of risk as well? What are your thoughts?
I guess everyone's different.
Yeah.
I personally like learning about lots of different assets, and to be honest, I would get a bit of FOMO if I wasn't in all of them. I know myself. If I didn't have a little bit of Bitcoin, I would be getting FOMO and buying Bitcoin at the worst times, or just buying things just out of FOMO. But I find that having diversity in my portfolio, a bit of property, stocks, a bit of crypto, like a tiny bit of Bitcoin, gold as well, I find that whenever the market fluctuates like it always does, if the property market's up, then I feel good because I'm like, oh, I've got a bit of property. That's amazing. When the stock market's up, I'm like, yay, I've got a bit of stocks. Or when crypto's up, I'm like, yay, I've got a tiny bit of Bitcoin and I've got a tiny bit of gold. It kind of feels good knowing that it's all balanced. And the good thing is, kind of because all of these assets, they don't go up and down at different times. So I might have some times when, let's say, the stock market is down, but property is up, or the stock market is up and the property market and crypto markets are down. I kind of still have one asset class that is still up, and it kind of balances out the risk in my portfolio. So I do like having a bit of everything because, I don't know, just feels good. What about you? Diversification or diversification?
Look, I think it's smart when you've got the ability. So I'll like you said, everyone's slightly different. Some in their 20s, generally I say, look, they're starting out their career, so they've got lower incomes. The worst income you'll have in your lifetime is in your 20s. And you probably, if you're renting, there's not much left over like you had. So there's not much to invest at that point. Okay. So you could probably get in shares, get out to then go into property. And that's a good stepping stone approach, I would say. If you're trying to like accelerate your ability to save, if you don't have to bank your mum and dad, for example, you have a high deposit, and that's one good stepping stone. Some clients will get shares through their employer, so I think don't sell that. Kind of park that, pretend like it doesn't exist, and that can be in the background. I'd say with crypto personally, if you haven't done your research and you're investing, you don't know what time of the market you're investing in crypto, just be prepared to take a hit on that, or it might go up. And so just, again, it's a bit of play money. Throw a little bit of play money at it before you go all in is another part. But asset, and naturally I'm slightly biased towards property, but it gives you the ability to leverage against it. And that's like any other asset class there besides a margin loan for shares. You can lend against it to buy more property, and that ability to leverage and go again, because the banks are just so willing to lend against property, that's where it's an unfair advantage. And then there's tax benefits off the back of it, for example, like you've got cash flow. It can then increase in value. You could sell that, pay down your mortgage, for example. There's so many different offshoots, but you have to, and I say generally that first property becomes your cornerstone, because if you do that well, it will set you up to succeed. But imagine you bought that property and it didn't do well. Not only is it giving you time out of the market, but you've lost so much confidence and so much, confidence would be the right word, in property that you're like, it doesn't work for me. And that's probably my view of the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think leverage is amazing with property, and it is so true that the first property is really important, because I was just curious looking at some other apartments that we could have bought at that time. And even though we bought almost at the bottom of the market in 2019, 2020, like there were still apartments that we could have bought that we were looking around at that time that have lost money. So if we bought it, we would have lost money, which is crazy. So yeah, I'm glad that we're up on our investment. If we sold it today, we would have made a good profit, like not crazy, but like pretty good for an apartment. And it's really important.
Oh, well done. Thanks very much. You touched on this before around limiting beliefs, and I'm really big on this. We talk a lot around mindset. You guys, you're listening, I've spoken heavily around mindset. We speak heavily around the psychology of money and atomic habits. So when you are talking to people around limiting beliefs, and I've also kind of weave into their financial self-sabotage, I start to see that really appear. What's some of your beliefs around that personally?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think something that I've noticed is when I first started investing, I thought that the biggest things that would sabotage my success when it comes to building wealth and investing would be external factors, like the banks or the stock market or the property market crashing, or all these things outside of my control. But what I've actually realized is a lot of it actually comes back down to me. Like sometimes I'm the problem. I'm the reason why maybe I'm not allowing myself to achieve my next level of success. And I'll give you an example. So we've been looking around for a new place, we were looking around for a new place, and I had this kind of uncomfortable feeling going into some of these open homes. Looking around, they were really nice, very modern places. And I stepped into one home and I had this thought, and it was, this home is really nice, but it's too nice for you. And it just made me stop in my tracks because I was like, oh my gosh, like, why am I thinking this? Why am I saying this to myself? 5 years ago when we bought our first home, it was obviously our situation was very different. We were looking at the cheapest apartments we could find around Sydney, and they were not very nice at all. But now, 5 years later, we had grown our wealth. We're in a completely different financial situation. And that was the reason why we were looking at these really nice homes. And it was interesting because the more I reflected on it, I realized that it was like what you said, it was a limiting belief. And if you don't reflect on these limiting beliefs, it can actually stop you from enjoying the things that you've worked so hard for, or maybe even stepping into the life that you've been working hard for all along. And I've realized throughout my financial independence journey and throughout my investing journey is these things happen quite often. And if you don't catch yourself in the moment, you could end up sabotaging your success. So, yeah, I'm happy to say I actually did end up buying that home, the one that I thought was too nice to me. And so I'm like, oh, it's just nice. I'm glad that I realized in the moment because that could have stopped me from buying it, which is just crazy when you think about it.
It is.
Do you have any limiting beliefs or any things that you've realized?
Oh, they whether you call it internal chatter, whether you call it imposter syndrome, whatever it's going to be, there's always an element of that where, um, if you're making money, then it's like, okay, then you're looking for ways to spend that money very quickly. If you're not making money, then you start to become you make bad decisions in that headspace as well, like very lack. They come from a place of lack and scarcity. So how do you cut corners, for example? And I've got one of my big money beliefs is state of wallet equals state of mind. And I will always come back to that going, when you have a healthy bank balance and you have a sleep at night factor and there's cash flow there, whether you go Scotty Pape buckets or you do your banking slightly differently, but when you have that little bit of emergency funds and when you're in our respective businesses and you've got a little bit of a cushion there, for example, that to me is probably when you start to make better decisions and you don't have to make them rashly. And money is an energy.
It really is.
It really is an energy. I think, and when I read your title of your book, and we'll come to that, even me around the energy that comes with home loan debt, and was in the investing world, home loan debt's considered bad debt. I disagree with that so strongly, and like it's the best debt. Like you think about buying this home, and you have a mortgage, but the memories that you want to make as a family, the security and stability to buy into that neighborhood that you said, hey, this zone that I think is even above me, that mortgage becomes irrelevant because now you've got something that's part of your identity, part of your family. You're going to have birthday parties for your little daughter. You're going to make some mad memories, make some great connections with the neighborhood, send your daughter to a school nearby, for example. It's like, how can a mortgage be considered bad when that's what it enables you to do?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much. There's a topic that you talk about, which is the first 100K. And I think this is really important to go through because I think you explain it very well. So for the people that are listening that aren't familiar with it, can you share what you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's this really famous quote from Charlie Munger, bless him. Rest in peace, Charlie Munger. But basically what he says is the first 100,000 is always the hardest. And I was really curious about this. So I started to do my own kind of research on it, playing around with some compound interest graphs basically. And if you're listening right now and you want a fun activity to do, you can get up a compound interest calculator and just type in a couple of these numbers. So let's say you have $100 a week to invest. You set aside $100 per week to invest with an 8% return. What's really interesting about this is when you have a look at the graph, it's really, really slow at the beginning. Like it is really slow. Like you might only make a tiny bit of money after your first year because, when you don't have that much money invested, it can be really slow and difficult. But once you reach your first 100,000, things start to move a lot quicker. And what's really interesting is the first 100,000, once you've reached your first 100,000, you're actually already 1/3 of the way to $1 million. And the reason why is because of compound interest. I know it sounds strange because you're like, how is that possible? Yeah, it sounds like 10%, but no, actually 30% because of compound interest if you do have that money invested, of course. And I think it's just so motivating because I wish I could go back to my younger self and tell her that it's not always going to be this hard. And you're not always going to have to struggle this much. So I feel like if you're feeling like it's taking a really long time to get to where you want to go and things just aren't moving fast enough, just remember that the beginning is always the hardest, and then it just gets so much easier because when you have more money invested, your money just gets to make more money on its money, and you don't even have to do anything. It's pretty insane. So yeah, definitely play around with the compound interest calculator so you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, great. And so someone listening when they're going, count the dots, $100 a week, compounding 8%, and they're going, well, Queenie, where do I get 8%, for example? How do they take that next step to find out where they should be putting their money?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, it really depends on what you like to invest in. I guess if you're listening to this podcast, it sounds like you're pretty interested in property.
Yeah. I mean, $100 a week isn't going to make you, and that's all, like without shooting it there, that's probably the hardest part for people. You need a decent sized deposit to get in, but that's where the $100,000 probably does come into property.
100%. Yeah, actually, that's true. So I would say $100 a week, if it's something like that that you have to invest, you could look at micro investing apps which invest in shares. That's a really great option. And, once you do have your 100,000, that's when you can look at property, which has also performed really well. Another option for people listening that haven't bought their first home and maybe would like to one day, there's this first home super saver scheme. So you can actually set aside some money into your super, and you can withdraw those extra funds when you're ready to buy your first home. So you can't withdraw any of your employer contributions. You're not going to be able to withdraw that until you're 65, unfortunately. But if you decide to contribute extra and top up your super, you can actually withdraw those extra savings to buy your first home. So that was something I wish I knew about earlier. I didn't know about it when I was buying my first home, but you can basically save on tax. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, good one. Very good. Cool. Let's jump in. So your new book, The Fun Finance Formula, I love it. Very much. Take us through the philosophy. So someone reading it, what are they picking up what you're putting down?
Yeah. So I guess what I've realized in life is that I feel like people kind of sit into two camps when it comes to money. So the first one is people that love spending money, and they're like, they just have so much joy about spending money, and they just love, like, I don't know, the process of like looking around, buying something really amazing, spending money on a really cool experience, giving a really beautiful gift to a friend. Like, they just get so much joy from those things. And the other type of person, I think, gets joy from like saving money, investing, putting their money aside, watching their wealth grow. And what I've realized is it's really important to have both mindsets if you want to have a healthy financial mindset. Like, you can't be all spending, love spending, but you hate saving and you hate building wealth. And you can't be all like building wealth, yay, like compound interest, but then you never actually end up spending any of your money. And I have been in both groups at one point in time and completely ignored the other. And I realized that it kind of leads to feeling a little bit like, let's say there were these times when I would just spend all of my money on fun stuff, traveling, going out with friends, which was really great. But then I had this nagging feeling in the back of my mind and this thought that was like, but you're not investing. How long are you going to keep this up for? How much did you spend last month? And it didn't make me feel good. And on the other side, there was this time when I was really frugal and I wasn't enjoying myself, and I was skipping coffees and going out with my friends, being really frugal and just depriving myself. And that wasn't very much fun either, because I was like, yeah, I've got my deposit and I've got my apartment, but like, what's it for? Like, what's the point, And I think that it's really important for us to have both of those mindsets, like if you can enjoy the process of saving money and investing as much as you enjoy spending money, and the reverse, then you're going to have a really good time with your finances. So that's what this book is about. It's for people that maybe they're really sorted with the wealth building stuff, they're really good at that, but they want to find ways to make money fun and like meaningful and spend on things that they enjoy without feeling bad about it. This book is for you. But then on the other hand, if you're somebody that loves spending money, you get so much gratification from that, but maybe you don't really enjoy the process of like saving and investing, then this book is also for you, because I talk about ways that you can actually make it fun and addicting, but in the best possible way, kind of like, I don't know about you, but I always get like this dopamine hit whenever I like make a bit of money. Like it doesn't matter how much it is, but I'm just like, yay, it feels good, you know?
And and that game of like trying to save more, I think even just the target, like for me, I used to have a visual spreadsheet. Like did it go green when I got to the savings target, or red when I was like at the month end? Nah, did I have my savings target met? So I think if you can find a way to mentally play a game with yourself, for example, it's maybe another challenge you could throw down. At that point, I've also done some research. You have an online sort of platform, or you got a service there which is called BillRoo.
Yeah.
Brett, take us through that. I'm very curious to find out how you've gone about building this, and then who does it serve, and what problem does it solve as well?
Yeah, of course. So I have a really amazing community and I love creating content, but also similar to like working a job, sometimes I realize like, it's amazing being able to create content and like do what I do full time. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to have some sort of like software company that could kind of like run in the background when maybe I wanted to take a bit of a break, because it's really difficult being an entrepreneur, like having to be on call all the time, like even on holidays.
Well, I mean, your base is your business. Yeah.
Exactly. It's really difficult. So I started this as kind of like a side hustle because I've put aside some money to invest in it and I wanted to see where it would go. I didn't like go all in all at once. I kind of tested the waters first. I released like a free budgeting template for people to download to see if there was any traction there. A lot of people downloaded it, so I was like, I feel like it's good momentum. Then I started to build like an MVP product, put in a bit of money to like just a very basic kind of budgeting tool. People liked it, so I've kind of like progressively increased the amount that I've invested in it, and yeah, so far it's going well.
I do admire that about what you've done. Most people would rush to build this massive finished product, right? And it's like, it's got to be perfect and take it to market. Whereas your stepping stone, which is how I'll launch it and leave a few breadcrumbs in terms of success. It's a very smart approach. Good on you.
Oh, thank you. I think sometimes maybe I'm a little bit too risk averse, so I kind of wish like sometimes, but I guess you always want what you don't have, like the mindset. But yeah, it's going well so far. I guess I wanted, and I'm sure you would know, like being a business owner, you know exactly where your business money is going. So you know how much you get paid, you know where your expenses are. Like I had that very clear, like from doing 5 years of like running my own business.
Yeah.
Basically, like I knew exactly where my business finances were, but one thing that I really struggled to find was like a really good tool for personal finances. And I'd tried so many different budgeting tools and apps out there, and I couldn't find one that really did everything that I wanted it to do and gave me the numbers in a really clear and motivating way. So that's the reason why I wanted to embark on this journey. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It hasn't, I guess I haven't broken even yet, but I definitely do see where it's going and I can see how excited people are about using this tool. There was this one lady that it was really interesting. I had this little budgeting workshop for the very basic MVP version. Had a few people in. It was a group of women and we were doing our budgeting together. And I remember leaving that meeting feeling really defeated because the tool was not quite where I wanted it to be. And there were so many problems with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. And what was really interesting was one of those ladies from that group, she had actually kept on using that tool. And like through all of the improvements that we made. And a year later, she sent me a message and she basically said that since using the tool, she's been able to pay off her student loans completely.
Wow.
Completely pay off her HECS debt and buy her first home.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, what? In just a year? And she was like, honestly, I didn't even know how I did it either. But like, it really helped me seeing where my money was going and seeing how much was falling through the cracks on things that I don't value. And I just redirected all of those things into my savings and buying my first home. And yeah, she was surprised because she thought it would take her years to do that. And she's been able to do it in a year, which is pretty crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well done. It's lovely when you get that full circle moment, which is you don't get to see the behind the scenes. And I'll have it with this podcast, for example, where people reach out, they've done stuff. I'm like, that's amazing. And it's almost that little little nudge to you to go, hey, keep going, you're on the right track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know sometimes it can get demotivating because it just looks like numbers on a screen and you're like, what's the point? And, you get all critical and then you realize like you're doing an amazing thing,
Spot on. So where to from next for yourself? What's next in the adventure for yourself, Queenie?
I think that I love what I'm doing for work. So I feel really grateful that I'm in a career that I'm really passionate about and I can really see myself being here for a long time doing what I'm doing. Um, More time with family, more travel, more like
Next holiday destination, where are you?
I'm going to South Korea and Japan.
Oh,
Should be really cool. Yeah, I've never been to South Korea before, so that will be fun. What about you? Where's to next for you?
Good one. We go by school holidays now, and you'll learn in due time that your life is dictated by school holidays. So mid-year, we usually go up to Queensland. We like the Sunshine Coast or the Gold Coast, bit of sun. And then later this year, we're headed to Hong Kong Disneyland over there. So they got Frozen World over there. So I thought,
Frozen World. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I want to go.
I know, YouTube that, and it's pretty much keeping our girls on the straight and narrow, which is, hey, look, if we're all good, we're going to go to Disneyland. So flights are booked. I think it's like August or September, we're headed over. Very excited about that. And that's just, something to look forward to.
Amazing. I think Disneyland is the best, especially as a kid.
Don't even. I feel like I did Disneyland as like a 20-something-year-old, So for me, for my girls, it's probably 5 and 7. This game-changing stuff.
I'm not, how lucky you are.
Yes. And also we're setting a bar for ourselves that makes it very hard to then live up to. But I think this is probably where it's like anything, like having team that are now, I'm responsible for feeding, or having kids that it then starts to then, I guess, turn the pressure cooker up a little bit for me personally. I'm like, people are reliant on me. People are reliant on our podcasts having good content because they're spending their time and energy in it. And I think that's where you and I probably get that really good feedback loop to go, this is a responsibility that we have, a responsibility to say team, a responsibility to my family, a responsibility to our clients or listeners, that we just keep walking the straight and narrow. And some people will enjoy that and lean into it, and others go, no, it's not for me. I don't want to be responsible for that. And that's a different path, and no judgments on it. But I think, probably for me, where I really get a kick out of this, people like yourself, and I'll be open, listeners. We get people that constantly want to come on, and I don't want to be a platform for someone to sell anything. Like, you're not here to sell anything. You're really here to share with people your journey, the impact that you're having, and the results will speak for itself, as opposed to wheeling out a product or a service. And that's something I've got to say. I respect in you that for such a young age, when a lot of young Australians are disenfranchised financially, to have someone like you be a fresh voice in this space, I find that absolutely refreshing. So I think it's a really good energy match is what I'm really trying to get at. So kudos to you.
Oh, completely agree. I think it's amazing, because it's definitely difficult, but there are still ways to get ahead.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure we'll all be looking back 30 years from now and being like, that was the golden opportunity, like we should have invested more,
But you speak to anyone, and that's probably their biggest regret. It's just, I should have bought 2 of those properties instead of 1. Why did I sell it, for example? I think that's where you probably need that, that really good team around you that can, hey, say, look, we see where you're at. Kind of, I call at the moment for investors a bit of grip strength. You got to hold on a little bit. Yields aren't great. Rents have dropped a little bit. So it's like, hey, cash flow wise, you got to hold on, but your future self will thank you for it. So what are you doing, today that your future self will thank you for? And if you've listened to this episode, you love it, we'll include links to all your socials as well. And then for one lucky listener, if you drop us a DM, say what you loved about this episode, we got a copy of Queenie's book to give away as well, which when that comes out, I'm sure will do really, really well. So good luck with your launch. I can say, having written the book and published it, it's a lot of behind the scenes work as well that goes into crystallizing your beliefs, because you're putting pen to paper, and now it's out there for everyone. But I think you're used to being the public spotlight, so it's probably something that came as a next logical step for you anyway.
Oh yeah, it's scary, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Well done. Hey, thanks very much for joining us, Queen. Really appreciate it. If you've loved this episode, hey, look, and you've got someone in your circle that could do with a bit of a nudge financially, to take that next step. Happy if you share this episode. And generally, we say that ripple effect starts to get bigger and bigger for people that are sharing this episode, maybe their children, maybe their friends, a partner, for example, just to go, hey, you might like this one, and hopefully it resonates with them as well. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. We'll talk soon.